So, about 3 months ago, my ex-girlfriend and I broke up. She was my first love, and experiencing my first ever real heartbreak has just been a really new and interesting and intensely sad experience. So I figured I would process my emotions in really the only way I know how. A quick van life road trip and making a YouTube video about it. Can I get the double French fry and medium drink? Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes. So I've always been a really independent person. I've always been really okay with doing things on my own. But for the last year-ish of my life, I guess I just really let someone into my life, and I got used to always having someone be there, whether it was with me physically or just in my back pocket, knowing that there was a text probably waiting for me to see what I was doing or to check up on me. And I got really used to this unending stream of support and love and validation. And when I lost that, I just felt this deep craving for validation in any way that I could get it. I've always been someone who thrives off of alone time and solitude, but for the first time in my life, it was really hard for me to just sit and be with myself, because I just felt so desperate, lonely, and unlovable. So I spent most of the quarter running away from myself. To be completely honest, the first 2 or 3 weeks after the breakup weren't that bad. I had a whole new set of classes to worry about. I was hanging out with friends that I hadn't seen at all during the summer, and there were just a lot of really fun things to do on campus. Whenever I think about those early weeks of the breakup, I use this metaphor to describe how I was feeling. Imagine that you have stuffed yourself full of food, and you do not want to eat another bite, and someone suddenly tells you that you can never eat again. At first, you might even be relieved and happy to hear that. But as time goes on, you get hungrier, and suddenly you're starving. And you've completely forgotten about what it even feels like to be full. And suddenly you crave food like you've never craved it before in your entire life. And I remember hearing a lot of advice about every day gets better. You just have to let time heal. But honestly, for a while, that was not how it felt for me. It felt like it was getting worse and worse for probably a month and a half. And the more I missed her, the more desperate and lonely I felt, and the more I tried to distract myself, sometimes consciously and sometimes unconsciously. I just fell asleep at this rest stop for the last 2.5 hours because I have not slept at all today. And now it's 11 o'clock and I've got another 2 hours of driving to do. But I figured this is a good spot as any to just keep talking about my breakup. This rest area is looking really empty right now, and so it kind of feels like I have the entire thing to myself. A lot happened this quarter. My social circle exploded this quarter. I have probably spent more time with people this quarter than I have any other quarter on campus, hands down. I became obsessed with pickleball. I went to a rave pretty much every weekend for 9 weeks straight, and I even tried to upgrade my wardrobe for that post-breakup glow-up. And I don't know if you can tell right now, with the gray sweatshirt and the black sweatpants, I got the Birkenclogs on. The Birkenclogs were a great buy. I was talking to my friend today at the airport, and I was like, you know what? Materialistic things haven't really made me feel better about the breakup, but the Birkenclogs haven't made me feel worse. But anyways, looking back on it all, part of me just felt like I was running away from my loneliness and all those negative emotions this entire quarter. I could not stand being alone. And despite all the time I spent with other people and doing things, I don't know if it really helped. The second I would be done or alone or I dropped my friends off, all the loneliness would just creep back in. Even now, after the holidays, where I've spent pretty much the last 3 weeks surrounded by friends and family, and I can feel that loneliness starting to creep back in. And it obviously feels better now, but man, when I was in the middle of it this quarter, when I was in the thick of it, it really felt like this loneliness would just never go away. I remember the times in my life when I felt the most confident. 2 summers ago when I was living out of my car, I would walk around with this air of confidence that came from the belief that somehow everything would always work out. I don't know exactly how, and I don't know exactly what that would mean, but I always just knew that things would work out okay. The future wasn't something to be feared. It was exciting and something to go out and explore and to see what was going to happen. I used to be so excited about the future and all of the things that were going to happen that I couldn't imagine. But after the breakup, I found myself being scared of the future in a way that I had never been really scared before. Part of me is just terrified that I'm never going to fall in love again. Part of me is just terrified that I'm never going to fall in love again, or that I'm super unlovable, or that I was really lucky to have fallen in love with someone that loved me. And I'm just really scared that that's never going to happen again. And right now, it's just really hard for me to imagine loving anybody else. I know how irrational that is, and I know I'm only 21, blah, 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 blah. That's just how I feel right now, okay? Everyone can tell me that, and I can tell myself that, but it doesn't change the fact that I am just terrified. I don't know if I'm just getting older or what, but my back does not appreciate sleeping in the back of my van nearly as much as I used to. God, that hurts. Also, ignore this giant dent in the mommy missile. But all that being said, I did do some things right. And I think one of the things that really, really helped me with the beginning of the breakup was that I honestly just let myself be sad. I kind of gave up on being happy. And I told myself that at least for a little while, I was just going to be sad and shaken. And that was just going to be the new normal. And that's okay, because once you've kind of accepted that you're just going to be sad for a while, you can ask yourself, what am I going to do next? Just because you're sad doesn't mean you have to sit in bed all day and wallow in self-pity. Something I told myself a lot was to imagine that I was in a cocoon. In like 3 or 4 months, I was going to emerge as a beautiful butterfly. And I just kept asking myself, when I emerged as this beautiful butterfly, what did I want my life to look like? Like, yeah, for now, I'm going to be sad, but one day I'm going to stop being sad. And when I do that, what do I want my life to look like? And so I really kind of started living for future me. And I knew that future me would be grateful if I didn't just completely let my life fall apart. Well, I kept up with my classes and research, and I stayed super consistent in the gym. Well, now that I have the forbidden pre-workout, that part was easy. I read 2.5 books this quarter, I made a YouTube video, and I continued working on my novel. And I also invested a lot socially. I mean, some of it was definitely just me running away from my loneliness, but I also really put myself out there and tried to meet more people and make new friends. Because I knew that in 3 months, I didn't want to emerge and then just be alone and feel like my social circle had really constricted itself. I wanted to come out and know that there were people I could go and hang out with. But all in all, it was my worst quarter by far. Academically, I got a lot less reading and writing done than I would have liked. And honestly, I could barely focus all quarter. Like, I would just sit down and try to work, and I just could not. But for the most part, I held myself together. And honestly, I'm really proud of that. I didn't make terrific progress in many different domains, but I really don't think I fell backwards either. Like, there's not many pieces I have to pick back up going into this new quarter. And I'm really, really proud of how well I was able to take care of myself. And honestly, I think holding my life together slowly helped me rebuild the sense of trust I have in myself that, I can do life without her, like I did for the first 20 years of my life. And now we're going to walk into downtown Santa Barbara, one of my favorite places on earth. Come on. God, I love finding new coffee places whenever I go somewhere. But I need to point out that me holding my life together was by no means a solitary effort. I had such a good network of friends that were willing to listen to me and to hang out with me when I was sad and depressed. I did not bottle anything up. I hate to be that guy that talks about nothing but his breakup, but I was absolutely that guy. Honestly, over the last 3 months, I feel like 50% of my conversations have involved my breakup. I have told literally anyone who is willing to listen, even my dentist, when her fingers were literally in my mouth. And honestly, I think it really helped me process my emotions. I just constantly bounced my worries and my fears off my friends, and they would kind of reassure me or just hold my worries for me and tell me that everything was going to be okay. That's really helpful. Also, hearing about the breakups of my friends was also really, really reassuring, because there are people who had experienced the exact same thing I had and had moved on and gone to a supposedly happier and better place. And that was just really hopeful for me. And it was really nice to know that I was just not the only person in the world who had been feeling all these deep senses of loneliness and shame and being unlovable. Apparently this is all really normal. And I know this is a bit confusing because I did just rant about how I was using my friends as a distraction from my loneliness. And I definitely did do that. But also, sometimes you just need someone to help you stay afloat. When the breakup is fresh, you're probably not ready to move on. You're probably just drowning in a sea of pain. And there are these 10-foot tall waves that keep crashing into you. And you probably don't want to do anything but let go because you're exhausted and you're tired and you probably just want to drown. And I think sometimes the only way to get through that pain is to find any life preserver or any distraction that you can to keep yourself afloat. And the love and attention and support of your friends is a great life preserver. You absolutely do not have to do this alone. But the most important part is that after the waves have crashed and you're still left floating because of your life preservers, you need to slowly start moving forward on your own. Okay, I don't know if that metaphor made sense to anyone else, but what I'm trying to say is that you should use the love and support of your friends and family to lift you up and to keep you afloat. But ultimately, it's up to you to take those final steps, and it's up to you to carry that weight and move forward. You're the one that really has to sit down and look at your life and ask yourself what makes you feel the happiest or like the best version of yourself, and what do you really want out of your life. No one else can do those things for you, and you kind of have to get there with your own 2 feet. So now I'm just going to journal and do a little bit of prep work before the quarter starts, because the quarter is starting in like 3 days. Yeah. So I just drove to McDonald's. I literally have eaten 7 double-doubles in the last 2 days. I have been living off of fast food burgers. But now I'm going to be driving to the top of the mountain. It's going to be like 30 minutes of driving. And I'll record the rest of the video up there. And this is probably my favorite place in Santa Barbara. So I'm excited to go to it. So I'll see you guys in a second. Okay, well, long story short, the mountain is closed. The road is closed because I think weather from the winter. So that sucks. So I can't really go up to my favorite spot and camp up there anymore. So I guess we'll be spending another night in the city, which is great because, you know, whatever. It's not like I had shots planned and stuff for the video, but I guess nothing wrong with a little improvising. And honestly, the last time I was up there, I was camping out there with my ex-girlfriend. Maybe there's a sign from the world that, you know, I probably don't want to be up there right now. Maybe that's not what I'm mentally prepared for. So in the beginning, when you're healing, it's going to be slow as hell. And there's probably not going to be a lot of time where you're not just actively trying not to drown. But I think the thing that really helped me heal the most is in those calm moments where you're not just actively drowning, to take steps forward. I forced myself to spend a lot of time alone. And I really think that helped. For the first month, I spent an hour at the end of every day after all my friends had gone to sleep and I'd finished all my work for the day. I just spent an hour either going on walks or sitting in my car alone and just letting my mind do whatever it does. And then after that first month, I probably did it like 2 or 4 times a week. And I also meditated a lot this quarter. I took a meditation class, and that meant once a week. I meditated every single day, and I went to 2 all-day meditation retreats. And these nightly walks and meditation in general just did so much for me. First, this is just when I got the bulk of my processing done. When I was alone with my thoughts, I could really start to think through everything that had happened during the relationship. I thought about the things that I did wrong. Trust me, there were plenty. I thought about the things that she did wrong, and I thought about why we ended. I thought about what I would want out of my next relationship whenever I'm ready for that. You know, and I just thought about like what I learned from this relationship. And then after I'd kind of done all this processing alone and like kind of shifting through all my thoughts, I'd go and I'd talk about it to like all of my different friends. And the second thing that this did was that meditating and walking really gave me time to just like deeply connect with myself. I paid so much attention to my internal environment, what I was thinking, how I was feeling, how I was talking to myself, the type of thoughts that would just sprout up in my mind when I was alone. And slowly becoming aware and more in tune with those thoughts gives me the opportunity to slowly change them. I'd spent the last 9 months to a year of my life primarily thinking about another person. And now I had all this time and attention to give to myself. And honestly, the best way to describe it is that it just felt nourishing. Like when you're meditating and you're just spending so much energy and effort just focusing on your internal environment and really paying attention to how you feel, that feels like food for the soul. And when you give that attention to yourself, I think you very, very slowly learn to love yourself again and to give yourself the compassion that you now can't get from another person. And I think this is really, really important, especially for dudes, because let's be real, for a lot of us out there, it is a barren, cold wasteland, okay? No one is coming to cuddle us. No one is coming to tell us that we're good enough. And for a lot of us, your girlfriend is probably that one warm, emotionally soft space that you had. You don't have that anymore. And I don't think the key or the right thing to do is just to wait until you get another girlfriend to have that again. You gotta learn to give it to yourself. Cry and be weak and be vulnerable. You don't have to be like this gym demon that is just cold and ruthless all the time or just focused on your goals. Like for this last quarter, I really focused on holding myself together, making sure my life didn't fall apart, and that was helpful. But I think I really started to feel better when I let myself fall apart and cry and just be a mess. I took a solo road trip during Thanksgiving, and I'm not gonna lie, up until that point in the quarter, I really had not cried much. But then as soon as I was alone and I was just on this road trip and I was giving myself, okay, this week is a week where you don't have any homework, you don't have any responsibilities, just go hike, just go be alone, do your thing, and be weak and cry. And I cried. I cried a lot. I cried while I was driving. I literally had to pull over on the side of the road because I could not not drive while I was crying. I cried in a Walmart. I cried in the Walmart parking lot while a lady was like 4 cars down from me yelling if anyone wanted enchiladas. And I cried while I was hiking, and I didn't hate myself for it. I just let myself cry, and I just allowed myself to feel all these sad emotions. And guess what? I started to feel better. Like, I really, really started to feel better. So to wrap up the second point, because that was kind of long, pay attention to your internal environment, okay? And let yourself feel the emotions that you're feeling. And sometimes you just gotta cry. Lastly, spending time alone and really confronting that loneliness helped me realize that loneliness is not something I have to run away from. I'm getting nervous. There's a woman walking by staring at me, and I'm nervous. I'm shy. Lastly, spending time alone and confronting my loneliness really helped me realize that you don't have to run away from loneliness. It really culminated for me during Thanksgiving break when instead of going home and spending time with family or friends, I chose to just spend a week alone. I went on a road trip like I'm doing right now, and I went to Redwoods and Pinnacles National Park, and I went hiking a bunch, and I just lived out of my car. And that week really made me confront the loneliness that I had been running away from all quarter. Like, when I was all alone with myself for that week, I remembered that I really like my own company. There was a bunch of things that I could do when I was alone that I loved. I could read a book. I could go hiking and see some beautiful places. I could watch anime on Netflix in my car, and I could just relax and vibe and take in the quiet. I had this realization that the thing that had been terrifying me since the breakup was this fear that I would end up alone. And if that is the worst possible thing that can happen to me, then that's really not that bad. I'm always in pretty good company. I'm really trying to make the most out of this park to just find places to record. And ultimately, I think that's the entire arc of healing from a breakup. When you're in a relationship, I think you inevitably offload a lot of the work of self-love and feeling good enough to your significant other. And when you break up, you're filled with this deep sense of shame and being unlovable because suddenly that pillar is gone. And at first, you're probably going to try to look for a replacement from the outside world. Friends, hookups, retail therapy, raves. There's a lot of things you could do. And that will help keep you afloat for a while. But I don't think that's real healing. It's only when you're really willing to take those steps on your own and really get down to the business of refinding yourself and asking yourself those hard questions of like, who am I outside of my relationship? What does a fulfilling life look like when I'm not dating someone? That you really start to heal. And I honestly think that's kind of just now the phase that I'm entering, because a lot of the last 3 months have just been me thinking about my breakup and processing everything that has happened in the past. Like, for the last 3 months, the breakup really has dominated all of my thoughts. I just thought about it and talked about it so much. And it's gotten to the point where I honestly can't imagine a time in my life where I wasn't thinking about my breakup or talking about my breakup or my ex-girlfriend. And it's like, what did I used to think about before I even knew her? It's crazy to me that a year and a half ago, I just didn't even know this girl. Like, I couldn't talk about her. I just didn't even know her. But during Thanksgiving, I think I kind of reached a culminating point where I really realized that I had thought about this breakup from every possible angle. And I had combed through all of those memories like 100 different times, and I'd realistically learned everything I could possibly learn by looking at the past. And I realized that there is just nothing more to gain by analyzing the past. And trust me, that definitely doesn't mean I don't think about the past anymore. But when I was fresh out of the breakup, if like a memory popped up in my mind, I'd have to like think about it for an hour. Now the memories are familiar thoughts. When they pop up, I don't have to rethink about it. I already know exactly what I think about the situation. I know exactly what I miss about it. I know exactly where to place it in the context of my brain because I've just spent so much time trying to process it. So now when memories pop up, I don't like need to re-ride that roller coaster. So last quarter was great socially and externally, but it always felt lacking because I wasn't my favorite version of myself. Like, I kept doing things out there in the world. I kept going to raves, kept playing pickleball, kept hanging out with more people. I went to karaoke a couple times, but I just never really felt happy. And looking back, it seems pretty obvious as to why. I just wasn't my favorite version of myself. I wasn't writing very consistently, and I wasn't really engaged with any of the reading or classes that I was in. I honestly was kind of just drifting and hoping for people or situations to come and save me. I mean, I did the best I could, and I'm not like mad at myself, trust me. I think I'm pretty proud of how the last quarter has been. But it makes sense to me why I never really felt at peace last quarter, even though I was going out and doing so many things. So this quarter, I feel a lot better now, and I'm trying to rededicate myself to really finding the things that make me really excited. I'm probably going to start writing a new novel. I think I'm going to finally have time to read some of the books I've always wanted to read. And I just want to continue to make space to be alone and appreciate my own company. And honestly, I'm really, really looking forward to this quarter. So now the sun is setting, and honestly, I figured there's really only one more place I could go in Santa Barbara that's not the mountains. So I just presented the arc of my breakup in a really linear and clean fashion. And I wish I could tell you that was actually how it all went. But that was not at all how it went. The healing process was messy and all over the place. I would make a resolution one day to just let myself be sad so that I wouldn't have to constantly fight this tide and I could just be sad and just move forward. But then I'd wake up the next day and I'd be so frustrated that I was sad and that I couldn't be as happy as I wanted to be. I would constantly tell my friends, I think I really need to focus on myself. And then I would go out and I would seek external validation in literally any way possible. I would tell myself that the breakup was the right decision for both me and her. And then I would wake up the next day terrified that I have let my only chance at love slip through my fingers. But coming to those realizations again and again is just part of the process. That's what healing feels like. And I used to think that healing meant that one day I would just wake up and I would feel better. And from my own personal experience, and it seems like the experience of everyone I talk to, that seems not to be the case. Healing doesn't necessarily mean that you feel better or that you think about them less. It just means that you carry the weight of it easier. Memories of her can pop up in your head without running amok for hours. And while it definitely doesn't feel nearly as bad now as it did like 2 months ago, I still have moments where I tell myself that I would probably give anything in the world to just have one more night with her where we're cuddled up in bed and laughing all night long. Fuck. Maybe part of me will always feel nostalgic for the past because at some point she was the most important person in my life. Like all of my memories of my sophomore year of college are going to be intertwined with her. But hopefully in the same way that I don't agonize over my best high school memories and cry that they're not coming back. I mean, she was my first love. What else do you expect? I remember I used to be so excited to fall in love and experience my first heartbreak. Whenever I was trying to comfort my friends going through heartbreak, I would just tell them that honestly, I was jealous. I had never cared about someone that much in my entire life. I'd never been that attached to another person that I would even feel that negatively that if they'd left me. And now that I'm going through it, it absolutely sucks. But despite how much this all sucks, I honestly am grateful for it. And I'm learning to be more grateful for it every day. I know it hurts a lot, and sometimes it's probably the most unsure of myself I've been in a really, really long time. But I still wouldn't have traded being in love and the memories I made over the last year for pretty much anything. Right now, it's only been slightly over 3 months since we broke up. And in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing. It's not even half of the time that we spent together. And I've done a lot of things in the last couple months to, help me get through my breakup. But I don't think anything I've done has helped as much as just life continuing. Time goes on, you do more things with your life, and slowly those moments that you cherish so much become washed away in the past. So this is a message to all the people right now who feel like they're in that dark place. They feel like they're never going to be happy again. They're scared no one is ever going to love them again, and that there doesn't seem to be a light at the end of the dark tunnel. And you just feel so desperate for something or someone to come and save you from your own shame and insecurities. You are the person that you've been waiting for. You can move forward on your own 2 feet and create a life that is just as full with or without anyone else.